Toast Bites.
Chomp.
Hey everybody, welcome to Toast Bites, where we take a look at some of the games I've played that didn't make it to a standalone video on my channel. Since this is the first episode, I want to take a minute to explain what this series is all about so you know what to expect from each installment. I play a lot of games, but I don't always feel like making a full video about them. That's why I created Toast Bites. It's a quick peek at the games that didn't get their own videos, but are still worth mentioning on my channel. Some episodes will follow a theme, like games with cool art styles or games from the same genre, but most will just be a random collection of whatever I played. And I won't be going into too much detail about them, so if you're looking for an in-depth review like the kind I give at the end of my regular gaming videos, you'll probably be better off playing the games yourself. They also aren't featured in any particular order, so don't judge them by where they fall on the list. All of the games are pretty neat in their own way. And as always, a link to every game featured will be in the description box, so let me know what you think. Now that's it for the rundown, let's get into it.
Number 1.
Tiles and Tales is a sliding block puzzle game with a clever mix of turn-based RPG elements. In it, you travel through different fantasy worlds battling foes, and you control your character's fate by combining blocks on the board. Don't mistake this for another mindless Combine 3 time sink. Every move requires strategy, and while the game is easy to learn, it's deceptively challenging once you get past the early stages. You can upgrade different attributes like increasing the number of turns you get or reducing the damage you take. And the game does a good job of introducing new mechanics on the board to keep things fresh, whether it's through enemies with unique attacks or power-ups found in the chests you unlock. The environments are rich, the music and animations are great, and there are fun challenges to be completed each day or week. You can even compete with friends or share gifts to help them out. And I really love this game, and it's pretty addictive. I came across it on Steam, but it's available for Android and iOS. So if you like puzzle games, but you want something with a little more depth, give Tiles and Tales a shot.
Number 2.
Stifled is a sound-based survival horror game that uses echolocation to reveal the environment and the monsters that lurk in the dark. With simplistic visuals just detailed enough to guide the way and an effective use of color, the game is sufficiently creepy, and sound isn't just to navigate the environment, your enemies will hear you too. Now, the game incorporates mic input, and it's recommended that you use it to get the full experience, but you can play without it by prompting your character to make noise instead.
Hello?
I opted to use a combination of the two, and the responsiveness was pretty good. Now, I played the demo on Steam, and I found it genuinely unsettling, so I can imagine the full game being worth a playthrough whenever it's released, assuming the echolocation mechanic doesn't go from being clever to gimmicky. I don't have a VR headset, but it does support the Oculus DK2 and CV1, and they expect to have support for the Vive as well. Overall, I think it's an interesting approach to the horror genre, so if you have the patience and prefer games with a slower pace, I'd say to check it out.
Number 3.
Qbert is a rotating puzzle game where you complete pixel art by sliding neon-colored cubes into place. Think of it like Tetris on meth. Now, the game is easy enough to learn, but the amount of coordination required to speed through the levels makes it increasingly difficult to manage the blocks without going back and forth to get it right. There isn't much more to it than what you see early on, barring a few mechanics that are added as you progress, so I think it was a smart move to use pixel art instead of random geometric shapes. It gives much needed visual interest to what could otherwise feel like a static game. And once you get into it, it's easy to get a rhythm going, and it can be dangerously addictive. The retro style of music is awesome, and for some reason, the overall look of the game reminds me of a cross between Qbert and Tron. At any rate, I played the demo on Steam, and I enjoyed it, so if this is the kind of puzzle game you're into, give Qbert a go.
Number 4.
Chameleon is a little adventure game I found on itch.io, and I don't really want to ruin it by telling you what it's about. The developer clearly had a vision for the story they wanted to tell, and as a writer, I have a special appreciation for the device they used to tell it. I also love the art style and the color palette they used. Now, the gameplay itself is pretty bare bones with a few puzzle elements: point and click, drag and drop, walk into a room and figure it out. It's the kind of game that's either very short or endless, depending on how good you are at using your noodle. Now, I actually did do a full video on it, and I don't remember why I decided to scrap it, but if you're looking for a quick playthrough of a quiet game that expects you to think, though not necessarily out of the box, Chameleon is a pretty decent choice, so give it a try.
Number 5.
Synth Rider is a visually slick racing game where you zip along a track dodging crystals to the tune of souped-up synthesizers. As a submission to Itch.io's absurd aspect ratio game jam, I expected an interesting use of composition, and I think the developers nailed it, making a completely disorienting mechanic feel fluid. Like something straight out of Moonbeam City, the style of the game is the standout here, since the racing itself feels a bit labored and slow, and the game is pretty limited with only one quick track to play. Don't hold that against it though. A lot of great things come out of these game jams, even when the developers are short on time or simply aren't planning to expand their submission into anything more. And I think Synth Rider is worth a download just to experience a constant change and field of view that you rarely see in games because, let's face it, it's freaking weird, and I love it.
Number 6.
1979 Revolution Black Friday is a choice-based narrative game set in the gritty streets of Iran in the late 1970s. You play as a photojournalist, and the game is pretty unique, touching on religious and political subjects from a personal and historical perspective not often explored in this way. You can expect the usual, like dialogue prompts and collectibles, but where the game really shines is in the way it weaves personal accounts and even real-world archival photos and footage into the game to give you a rich experience of true events. If the style of the game looks familiar, it may be because 1979 was developed by a company co-founded by Navid Konsari, whose name I likely just butchered, and who used to work at Rockstar, having since moved on to work on other projects like Alan Wake, which is one of my favorite games to date. I thought the quality of 1979 in terms of the story, voice acting, art direction, and graphics was pretty on par with what you'd see from the larger studios, but something about the way the game controlled felt really clunky to me. I can't quite put my finger on it. Something was just lacking for me about the feel and the way I interacted with the game. But don't take my word for it. I only played the demo on Steam. The full game, which I've heard is a couple of hours long, promises to be an engaging ride for anyone interested in a depiction of real-world events with a strong voice. So if you're into games that tackle sensitive subjects, it may be worth playing yourself. So that's it for this episode of Toast Bites. If you liked these games or hated them, let me know in the comments, and I'll be back soon with a peek at another set of games that didn't get a full video. Until then, see you on the plate.